Are your bodies ready? Today, Hex Power Hour, baby. I had to look it up. This is number 3. This is the third one. And always a fun one, always excited one, especially in the climate that is pure fire, the Hex ecosystem. Hex.com, everyone. Are you not hexed? Damn it. I thought I had a good one for that. Hextained. Interhexaned. You know what I'm trying to say. Hex and entertained somewhere. Chat, give me a good hex entertained word. A good one for that. We'll get into it. Anyways, very excited for this. Let me bring the gentleman in. We're gonna get right into it. Welcome back to the show, Chrispy and Ben's here. How's it going, gents?
Ben, how the hell?
Hey, Chrispy. Hey, Max. Yeah, I'm really fine. Like, I'm so excited about these changes that are happening right now, and I'm doing great. Super optimistic. Maybe too optimistic, but yeah, and glad to be streaming with you.
We need to hear more. We need to hear more about the optimism. I think I'll take the other side. It's the end of the world.
I want yes, all of that. Because why are you excited, Ben? Why are you excited? Because a lot of people say juicy yield, bye. Why excited, Dev?
Well, so the most important thing for the price, obviously, is demand and supply. The very easy economic model that we all know. And we know that Hex has this yield model, and it's inflating in theory, but it can also deflate in theory. It just needs a lot of demand for it to deflate. And we have great demand, but there's a lot of inflation, a lot of supply coming out. So how do you beat that if you want to have prices to go up? And price to go up is the biggest onboarder to the ecosystem. So if there's a major change within that, then all of a sudden, if you reduce supply and you maintain the demand, it's just numbers. And Chrispy is a numbers man, and he knows, he corrects those numbers. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we reduced inflation by a lot, and that should look great on the chart.
Take him down, Chrispy. Take him down. Take the other side. Take it. I want to see it.
Well, it's not really against what he's saying. I'm thinking I'm still up at the higher level of this, not the numbers. I think numbers wise, absolutely, Hex has been rigged for battle, right? Prepared for war. It's hatches are battened down, OA's in there, things are locked up nice and tight. Probably does several different things to the system that can be really beneficial. So I think at the numbers level, Ben's exactly right about that, right? I mean, I don't know how long it takes, for the lack of inflation would taking place, but the lack of new freshly minted Hex in weak hands. I don't know how long that takes to turn the ship, but combined with the opportunity for price to go way up, I think everything's set up for a nice collection. My other side of this is this. I cannot, based on my understanding of Hex, I couldn't I couldn't in good conscience talk to somebody who's new and tell them they should stick. So I think right now, at least for the time being, the staking narrative is dead, right? This is well, I'll tell you why, because here's the thing, right? This is not decentralized. This is the OA coming in and doing something that wasn't expected. People made very large stakes based on the idea that they were going to get inflation. I know it's DeFi. Everybody can do what they want, but inherently that's the problem. Can you really tell somebody right now that it's a good idea to come in with $10,000, $100,000 and put it out Quattro Cinco? All right. Now, yeah. I just said that, and tomorrow I'm going to do a Quattro Cinco stake. Now, and the difference is I already know about the system and how it works, I'm already in the frame of mind that Richard Hart does no harm, right? But how could I possibly, I in good conscience, I couldn't talk to somebody about it and be like, yeah, you should really lock up the money. What I'm going to tell them is you need to wait and see what the OA does, because I don't know what the OA is going to do. Right? There was no forewarning. I'm not complaining about it as in like I should have known. But if people literally were doing this to use it as product market fix, product market fit, the product market fit now is null and void until something else changes.
What about the HSI angle in Chrispy? Would that mitigate? Would that make staking more attractive?
I don't think so at this point, but I think that HSIs that have already been made super valuable now, dude. You probably wanted to have them. because like so again, I don't know what's going to happen, Ben, and I am just taking the other side of this, right? I don't know what's going to happen, but having a stake that already earned a shit ton of rewards and will continue to even slowly to earn in the future at a much higher rate than anybody else, at $10 hex, that's gold. It's gold. So I think HSI is in that way.
Ben's about to punch through the noise as well. You guys are punching through a lot of noise right now. I like it.
Yeah, it's brewing in me. Like it really is. I have many thoughts towards the pushback on. Now there's basically staking is not that attractive anymore. I mean, first of all, everybody kind of maintains the same amount of relative share within the system who understands the system. So if you were kind of like a squid or a dolphin or a turtle, I mean, you're kind of maintaining the same position if you just count out DOA. So relative towards others, the whole game stays the same. If you have a longer time horizon, you still gain more share in the system towards others. So that whole thing stays the same. But okay, let's say yields are lower. Maybe I look into other systems where yields are higher, right? But there is a risk curve. So with higher yields, it means higher risk. So what do we want to go with HEX? Where do we want to go?
Yeah.
We had higher. Let me finish the point, because here it's getting interesting. HEX is maturing into a state where it's where it has yield that is much lower, more like what you would find in the traditional financial system. So now if we make a higher high at one point, and then everybody will look at HEX, look at the yield, it won't be like 40%. It will be more like 4 or 5%. And maybe people at that level, if they want to come in, they think, this system really works. It's decentralized 4 or 5% yield. Very similar what I could get in the traditional sense, which should be always lower. And the rates are dropping everywhere in the world. So it won't be 4 or 5% in the world. And HEX will be positioned as a mature CD all of a sudden. So that's where we're positioning at.
But yeah, I get that too, because I think along the same lines with a lot of this stuff. But here's the thing: you talk about the risk curve. So what if the OA decides tomorrow that he's going to cut it in half again? What if he decides with the 7 years he's going to go out Quattro Cinco and cut it down by another 90%? Don't know. I'm not suggesting that'll happen.
He did cut ink again. Ink just got cut again.
What I'm saying to you is, for new people coming in, I'd tell them that they need to wait and see, do some research, decide whether or not being in HEX makes sense for them at all. For me, I'm already here. It makes perfect sense. And I know that it's going to work out long-term for me. That's my feeling, my opinion, a bit about what's happening. But I already have a well-formed ladder, going out 15 years.
there's a big difference between new people and already in. Like, again, I think that's one of the distinctions Chris is making. Also, though, real quick question: is the OA how much? So he staked, or they staked, whatever, however much, decrease the payout 50-60% or so. How much more power is there from the OA? Like, could the entity half it again, or like where's that?
Sure, just take the 7-day stakes and go out longer.
Do they have enough hex to do this? Like, do they have?
Yeah, take the
just going out longer.
Take the 7-day stakes and go out longer. Yeah.
I might think that he still has some liquid, but that depends on my estimations and my model. But I think there are some couple of billion still left somewhere. I have to figure it exactly out.
Yeah, and I think Bob James in the chat says it best, because this is something I've been struggling with for a while, because I like you, Ben, and I know RH handles it too. I'm watching the staking, right? I see what people are doing, and they're not coming in and staking already, and so why? It doesn't make sense. Maybe they will. Maybe people will stake now, but I don't see why they would. If they were discovering hex and getting 8% wasn't enough, why would they come in for 2%, 3%? Why would they do that?
Well, people stake mostly when they see an uprise in price, because they see confirmation. Oh, we're going up from here.
We believe that to be true based on the last cycle. Yeah.
Exactly. So every time when there's a pickup in price, at the beginning of last year or at the end of last year, then you see, staking activity going up as well and accelerating afterwards. So what I think that means is that people stake when they believe in it. So, and it's not about the yield in general. I mean, that of course, it's about the yield that you can earn, but in the end, if you earn that yield but the price drops, I mean, you have less value. So you need to make sure that the price goes up. And once you are sure, once you believe that the price goes up, you will stake because you believe in it.
I think there's an interesting point here. I just want to bring out too, the yield. Like I asked the other day, like, wow, how am I gonna? I used to be shouting, oh, look, come here for the yield. Look at the ink farm. Look at the PulseX farms. Look at hex, staking. Look at all the yield you can get from it. But now it's like, okay, well, we better have some green candles, because we need something to make people believe that price is going to go up. Because if you can't get yield, you want price appreciation. You got one of those things. I think that's what Ben's trying to bring out too, is this. It is this. We don't have yield to talk about. I mean, there is yield, but it's like you got to be a super big player. You got to go long term, all that stuff if you want it. But if we have the green candles like that, that's going to overpower the need for yield. I think that's what you're trying to bring up, Ben.
Yes, I mean, if you know that we will never revisit this price that we have, and you want to just safely make a yield, and you believe that that's going to happen, then why not stake it? Especially if you don't.
If you believe of lower highs, yeah. I mean, higher lows over time, yeah.
I think the FOMO being, because I'm just saying, if I came into Hex new, and I could see, okay, well, look at all the green candles, look at all the community, everyone's happy. I don't know what happened before, but everything's happy. And then it's like, okay, well, the price is going, well, oh man, okay, I believe in this thing now. Like, why wouldn't I? There's no reason not to. And then why wouldn't I stake some? Why wouldn't I say, okay, I'm going to put some, I know it's a low yield, I want to lock it up, I want to save myself for myself, I want to have it in the future. Why not? Kind of channeling that new person mindset. Again, we can't yell, hey, you're going to get 38%, because it's like 3.8%, at this point. But it's one of those, like, if you're in the FOMO, does the yield matter as much? I think it's interesting.
Oh no, it goes back to Richard's approach to things in the first place. The yield was just nice. It was gravy on top. So if you think of it that way, right? That was the setup. The setup was holding is what matters. Holding for higher prices is what matters. The staking just helps you get there, and you get paid to do it. And perhaps and he did come out in the past and say, hey, I think that the reward's about two times too high. And there's lots of scenarios, man. There's scenario playing the hell out of this, but
The yield is
there are a lot.
everything.
There are lots of scenarios, and one of the scenarios is that these 7 days go away, and essentially what you've done is you've halved the rewards. So we'll have to wait another couple of days to see what happens, because that could be one of the scenarios, right? Roughly 10 million more T-shares, 8 million more T-shares out. Quattro Cinco cuts the rewards in half.
Well, to Chrispy's point too, what if what if we don't get green candles? Like, how do we, now that we don't have the yield to tell people about, what if we don't get green candles? What do we got? I mean, I know what we got, and I know we got this amazing community, and we got this founder, all this stuff. But like, what is their marketing point to other people if they don't have the green candles and they don't have the yield? I think it's a risky deal there. I mean, the monetary policy change is not without risk, I don't think.
Well, right, and now listen, you can say that the OA didn't hurt you. I could say the OA didn't hurt me, but there are people that interpret what just happened as doing harm.
Can you explain that? Like, who would be affected like that?
Let's say you really believed, right, in the ideas and thoughts of Richard, you just had come late, and you decide, okay, I'm going all in this thing, right? Take my whole, maybe they shouldn't have done that, but take my whole bag in. I come in, I set my staking ladder with the idea that I'm going to be earning yield, right? So their viewpoint right now is, well, I guess I just threw all this money away. I locked it up into the future with, I'm not even gonna get much more hex out of it, right? And so from that perspective, right, you could be like, man, I just got screwed.
But the thing, Chrispy, the reality is, in the end, you can get all of the yield what you want, yeah. But if the reality makes the price go down, and all that supply that is coming out makes the price go down. If you want to change that reality, you have to adjust interest rates, like the Federal Reserve is doing it. The Federal Reserve is also not like having one interest rate and then you get that forever. They adjust based on the market. So, the OA can do these kind of things. And that's out of like, so
and
if you want to take this point that the kind of the yield is not set in a decentralized way, because the supply is kind of controlled by the OA. So you earn the yield in a decentralized way, but you cannot set the yield in a decentralized way. So maybe that's what people don't like about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm bringing these items up because I already told you what my plan is. My plan is I'm continuing to stake because I think that's what's going to win. But man, it's a force to get there, and this does not feel immutable. This does not feel like the market decides. This feels like Richard decides what's going to be true and what's not going to be true. And if he decides something that I don't like, well, too bad for me. And I think these are real feelings that people have. I'm personalizing it in this conversation. I'm taking this side of it. But I mean, individual stakers had no control over what just happened.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that you can be certain about is that there will be always yield. Like, there cannot be no yield in this system.
That's
so
true.
I think that's powerful. So you will be always earning yield, and you will be always maintaining your position towards others. That's also important to understand. So in the end, if the price goes up and you earn that yield, you will be just happy. And to change, and then there's this other thing, which is about not the psychology of the new people, but the psychology of the old people. Because what happens there? Let's say you got in 2019, 2020, I happened to got in. Maybe you gathered really good T-shares and you're earning like really great yield. And you're looking at the yield and you're like, oh my God, I don't think I ever have to work ever again. price even still drops, but your yield is even increasing. You're like, my price drops, but I can still sell that yield all the time and just live off that. So why should I buy more? But now comes the change. All of a sudden, yield is getting dropped, 7x. And you look at that yield and you're like, well, maybe I cannot live out of that yield. So what do? You understand it's scarce. So all that yield that you gathered, or we will even come out with the stakes, you're thinking about them. Okay, if I sell that yield, I can never make that back because of the change in the dynamics. So all of a sudden, even if those stakes earn that yield, the psychology of the people from these early stakers might change, and they might want to keep holding on to it because they know that it's scarce and that HEX matured into a more serious coin with lower yields. I mean, that is just my speculation, but what do you think about this psychological aspect of the old stakers?
There is something that combined with the 5 years, 100% of the time, all that stuff, and new people coming in, not just being able to say, okay, is this thing going to work? I don't know what's happened before. We have all the history. We have all the different moves. Everything's on chain, all that stuff too. It almost makes me think, if monetary policies change within HEX, regardless of how they happen, is it found to be more trustworthy and therefore easier to stake based on that than it used to be? Maybe that's a question from it too before we switch gears here. Whoever wants to take it. Don't jump all at once. It's kind of riffed on Ben's point.
Well, and my mind was drifting a little bit into a different direction. I was thinking, can you repeat the last sentence?
Oh shit. Is it easier to stake? Let me summarize the last sentence. Summarize the point. Is it easier to stake now than it was, even when I would say not even when the price is going up, because that would be the easiest time to stake, because you have no fear of whatever going wrong at that point because you're full FOMO mode. But do we have things now that we didn't used to have that would give people confidence in staking, even if we don't have green candles at this point? Maybe that's I don't know.
It's still okay, look for a system that is like HEX anywhere. You don't have it. HEX is the only system like it. And so you cannot really earn decentralized yields. And there are others who are trying to imitate that, but I don't think that they get exactly what HEX is about, because it's about the T-shares.
Yeah. Well, and you can absolutely just say that HEX is a failure at this point, right? Not that I believe it's a failure. What I'm saying is, and I'm trying to communicate this properly, I'm all in, right? I believe I'm going to do a Quattro Cinco. I'm not saying it's over. What I'm saying is, somebody coming in is like, man, price has been crap. This thing was supposed to work by itself. It doesn't work by itself. The OA has to come in and do the heavy lifting. It's a failure on all fronts, right? I mean, that is the criticism coming in. And what's wonderful about it is this, and this is kind of a dick move, but you ask about people staking RH, right? I don't think there's any reason to stake at this point, right? I mean, we've given people every reason possible now to not stake and to emergency end stake. And both of those situations are wonderful for the existing staker class. It puts a walled garden up. It isolates it. And it makes it so that the people who are truly going to be fabulously wealthy are the people who were in HEX from the beginning or earlier and have built their ladders. Even today, if you had just gotten your ladder set up, you're just like off the hook. You're going to be set, right? In fact, staking may even disappear from our vocabulary. You know, we might not even be covered anymore. You know, we have these videos and streams. That's how significant of a change this could have been. It's like a disembarkment point between classes now, which isn't, and that kind of rubs me wrong way too, because that isn't what I always. Of course, I didn't design the whole thing, right? But that isn't how I thought of HEX. I thought HEX was for every man, every woman.
Is that the? I almost feel like it. I don't know. When I think of people being and it, I mean, everyone thinks about HEX in maybe a different way, or during a certain, there's different tribes and stuff in HEX too. But when I think about it, I always knew, hey, big whale there. Why does it exist in the first place? There could be changes along the way. No expectations, all that stuff too. But there is this sense of like, hey, like it wasn't, things changed so dramatically that this wasn't even, I thought it was going to be this kind of ethos, but it's like, maybe there was something that, maybe there is things that need to happen from time to time to make adjustments that can be, I don't know, can be surprising. It doesn't invalidate the thesis for HEX to me though. It doesn't, when I think about HEX, I still think of decentralization. I still think of, always up, true DeFi. I just think there are knobs that can be turned by big players in the system, and it was designed that way. I don't know. Maybe I just defer a lot of judgment to the founder as well, but it doesn't like shake me from. I mean, as someone who loves the product, plenty of aligned incentives around it. It doesn't shake me as.
You're already here.
No, I get your point about it not being good for new people coming in, but I still think there's. I would go to, it must have been done for a reason, and the best reason, the most what is it called?
I'll tell you the reasons. I can tell you all the reasons, I think, man.
We're gonna get into it. We need to back up at some point, actually tell people what happened. There's probably people listening to like, what the hell happened? I don't know. I don't understand this. But real quick, I think that there is a shift to, hey, this is going to affect people more than other people. And new people coming in, we can't yell yield at them. We can yell yield, but we can't get them to believe with the yield first. Right. Maybe that's one place.
Trust me, bro. It'll get better later. Trust me.
Well, I want to be like, trust these green candles. Look at this 500x HEX just did. Am I late? So anyways,
that's right. The new pump tires HEX is better than the old HEX.
Pump.hex.com. Let's get that one.
Tires, yeah.
But yeah, real quick before we get into it, I know Chrispy wants to talk about this piece as well, but can we just briefly, whoever wants to take it, what happened in the last 8 days? 9 days, whatever it is. Like there was like a 7-day rolling short stake from the OA, and then more stuff happened. What happened?
Yeah, I'll give you my quick take on it. The OA, I believe, has put HEX into safe mode. And what that means is short stakes totaling something like 10 million T-shares, roughly. I'm not going to add them up right at the moment. And long stakes of roughly 10 million T-shares, effectively reducing the rewards by 70%, roughly, and in terms of APR, and puts HEX in a safe mode. For those who think that it makes a difference, a whole bunch of HEX was locked up and now, quote unquote, isn't available on the market. And this is a supply squeeze, because now with the OA having that many T-shares, 2/3 of the T-shares, not only is it receiving 2/3 of all the rewards, anybody who does dare to merge the end stake, the OA gets 70% roughly, maybe, of all of the penalties, right? Because it gets half the penalties to start with, and whatever its share is of the penalties that would be going out to the stakers. So safe mode, baby. It's safe.
Wow. And so yeah, Ben, any piece to elaborate on, or any even different perspective on it too? Because I think the supply squeeze is one thing.
Yeah, I shared my screen, by the way. I just made some numbers before the stream. So you see these 4 squares. I mean, that's what kind of like happened. So on the left side, you have Ethereum. On the right side, you have Pulse Chain. On the top, you have the 15-year stakes of the OA. These are all the OA stakes that I was querying. And you can see that many stakes were made, like on both Ethereum and Pulse Chain, slightly different, but 2,600 stakes were made. And these 2,600 locked up basically 200 billion hacks on Ethereum and Pulse Chain. That is 15 million T shares. It was all staked 15 years. And it's also 2,600 daughter OA addresses that have staked. And it all started on February the 8th. And before that, we had the 7-day stakes, which were 350 billion on each chain. Somehow on Ethereum, there were 7 stakes, and on Pulse Chain, there were only 4. Don't know why the different number, but yeah. And on Ethereum, you had 7 addresses staking, and on Pulse Chain, you had 2 addresses staking. And all started on the February the 5th. So in 2 days, the stake should mature, and it can be end-staked. There is the grace period, obviously, of 2 weeks. So yeah, I mean, these are just like the raw numbers of what's happened. And when you want to see my old supply chart that I had to grab out of my archive because it was never really changing, here you can see the real supply between locked and circulating from the start. And yeah, you can see that the locked ratio just went up here to exactly 92.49%. And only 40, this is on the Ethereum side. Pulse Chain looks the same. But yeah, it was a very boring chart until recently. So this is for new people to understand historically how the supply had been issued. Here, starting with the adoption amplifier, there was a close to 90% locked in the first month. And then the OA increased its share, most probably through the adoption amplifier. And then up until Big Payday, at Big Payday, the OA staked kind of all of his coins to get the payouts, and then unstaked it just right after. And yeah, so this is what happened. And now we were talking about the supply shock that is coming. It's not coming all of a sudden. It's coming basically slowly.
Yeah.
The supply that we are actually concerned about is the user circulating supply. And I have like tracking that actually over the months, and it was just increasing and increasing since Pulse Chain launch. So that combined with some other charts of mine where you see like the average yield just increasing all the time because these old stakes are just like bringing out all of that supply.
Real quick too, is this amount staked? Is that pretty accurate to what we have?
It is exactly the same number. We have 92.49 on Ethereum. And RHMax win. Yeah, just very accurate. So these are very accurate numbers. apphex.win has always good numbers. You can trust them.
Yeah, they're awesome. Anything else on this piece? Anyone, you can question in the chat and get them in if you have any questions on like what actually happened. There's a couple in here I want to get to, but well, let's
pop up my chart. I'll knock it off real quick if you don't mind.
There we go. Let's do it.
Just to show you the effects of this. So we need to wait and see what happens with the 7-day stakes, but what this is projecting out is the share rate based on the current reward levels that we're seeing. And so how this is different than before all these stakes were made is that we have a slightly lower end of 25 T-share rate, somewhere around 45,000, 46,000, when it would have been more like 49,000. And this will give us some insight into what the effects will be on this, because with the lower yield, the T-share rate goes up, but it goes up more slowly. All right. And so a lot of stakes have already served all their time, and they're going to set, or most of their time, they're going to set the new rates as this year goes on. But the further you get out, the more opportunity there is for the T-share rate to be lower, a lower increase. And so prior to these events, we were looking at something like 49 at the end of 25. So we'll just say 50 at the end of 25. We were looking at 60 at the end of 26, and something like 70 at the end of 27. And so you can see that the numbers have dropped down as far as this forecast goes, what the T-share rate will be. And again, that's as a consequence of, right, the new share rate calculation includes how much reward you would get. And I can't possibly know the future. So this is just one scenario, right, of what might happen.
That's absolutely correct. Like this is a good projection. The projection is the T-share rate is increasing now slower, also adding towards like having less supply because the payouts are just lower for the old stakes. Yeah, I mean, I find it incredibly good because again, every system where you lock up your coins, yeah, should it be your fiat system where you lock up your coins, you want first and foremost that the value is preserved within that coin. So if you don't believe in the value that it's preserved, then the yield means nothing. So you have to kind of like, you know, believe that the value can be maintained, that it's a store of value. And really, if like HEX wouldn't move now in the second cycle, that could, you know, like tell us, you know, maybe it's not a good store of value. So we need to kind of make that higher high. It needs to go up. It needs to overtake 50 cent in the second cycle. We have 1 year or maybe 1.5 years. And if we do it, then we maintain basically the store of value. So the locking up makes sense. So the yield that you get makes sense.
Nobody wants to go back to McDonald's. It's true.
Exactly. And that's why I feel it is important to have this change, because this gives us the boost. And if there's one chart that I'm tracking now since 1 year. I think I put it up on Matty's stream at one point the first time. And it's about the inflowing and outflowing value out of staking. And it combines like EHEX and PHEX. And that chart, you can clearly see that the outflows are dominating the inflows.
You want me to hold the chart up?
I have the chart up, actually.
Boom, there you go.
So this one is a monthly chart So what you see in blue is the net in or outflow for each month. So when it's above zero, we had a positive net flow into staking in dollar values. And when it's below zero, it's a net outflow. And yeah, there's just a combined hex price chart overlaid. And what you can see is that up until September 2021, we had some really good inflows into staking. But after September 2021, the outflows are just so much dominating, especially just the next year. Yeah, with like here even $500 million value flowing out after staking. And I mean, you can change it with obviously demand. Yeah, if you have a lot of people coming into HEX and there's a lot of demand for staking. But what happened is that since Pulse Chain, the demand for staking dropped. So there was like, there's a clear break. And you also see the user circulating supply increasing since Pulse Chain launched, because we have many more coins, many other things to do. So all of a sudden you have to adapt, I guess, to the new market situation. And one way is to reduce the yield, because you don't have enough demand. So you need to reduce supply. And then if we, through that, make a higher high and HEX goes up again, I mean, all the locking was worth it if you like the coin and if the price went up.
Price go up. That is a risky move. Like, it's, I don't know. So why now though? That's another question. Like, why would this happen now? Why wouldn't it happen 6 months ago?
Why not 6 months ago?
It's time.
Well,
I want to say it's time to go up. I want to believe that.
Well, you asked about some of the reasons about why all these changes were made. And remember I said that, you know, that HEX is rigged for battle, rigged for war, right? And so a lot of the things we're talking about, they're super bullish for HEX and HEX price. And as an existing staker with a ladder, it's very bullish for me. I mean, I think this is awesome, right? So what are the natural effects? Lots of T-shares, little yield, less staking, right? That's just we could argue about it, still makes sense, right? But people are going to stake less. More T-shares, less yield. People who are staked give up and capitulate. The towers from 29 and 30 go down. Redistributing HEX and T-shares, the OA gets more of it. The price goes up. People have $1 million in their stakes. They emergency unstake them because, hey, you know what? They would rather do that now and get out with their value, whatever the numbers are. It could be whatever number you want it to be. The OA FUD that the OA who is not supposed to do anything is only, that's some people's thinking, right? Isn't supposed to do anything, came in and made big changes to the system. You can't trust it anymore. I'm out. So we just have like, the whole landscape for the next 15 years can now be terraformed, right? You know, into the new Hexaco. The shorties who really are responsible for most of those outflows, I imagine, you know, that we're getting their 8% APR for very little commitment and very little risk. Are they going to stake anymore? Why would you stake? I mean, I know why I would stake, but why would you lock up into HEX for 30 days and not be able to do anything in a fast moving market, and take a penalty, even if it is small? Why would you do that? If you wanted to get out, you wouldn't, right? So anyways, there's just all these super bullish things that could come out of this. And I think the OA has set up the HEX staking in such a way that up, down, sideways, backwards, good events out of the lawsuit, bad events, whatever, it's ready. Safe mode.
Well, is it so? This is so after 5 years. This is the. Has it happened before? By the way, I know there's some historical things. I know that remember the Hedron cell wall bit and stuff too. Historically, has OA made any moves that have been staking like this? Wasn't there some staking around the beginning? Was it?
Well, yeah, for big payday. For big payday.
For big payday, yeah.
Hey, also the first month, yeah, he did stakes in the first month and around big payday.
Mm-hmm.
Is this
seeding the system? Yeah.
Is this cyclical? Like, could this be every few years? All right. Well, I guess 15 years now, but
he will have to move now with the 7-day stake. He has to do something with it. He has to decide if it goes longer on. If it's like rolling, we will see something.
He doesn't have to decide anything. You can just leave it, do nothing.
But then
technically,
now I don't know from the top of my head, Chrispy, if you good account the stake, with penalty. Is that penalty getting distributed at good accounting? I think so.
Yeah, penalties don't get distributed unless somebody either does good accounting or end stake. No matter what, somebody's got to do one of those two for penalties to go out. But yeah, it would likely happen in the scenario that these stakes are all sitting there. We go another couple of days and the OA takes no action. If we get 14 days out, well, because no one took action, the T-shares still take up rewards from the pool, but they go to nobody, right? So HEX is still becoming more and more rare. At any time, somebody else could good account these stakes, right? At any time. In 14 days later, it would start accruing penalties at 1% per week. But those penalties are kind of like stacked, right? They don't come out until somebody either does the good accounting or the end stake. And so yeah, I mean, this is DeFi. People can push buttons. So
yeah,
the likelihood is if the OA doesn't do anything, somebody's gonna go. Even though I wouldn't want them to do it, I'd want it to burn myself. That's how I would feel. But they'll probably go good account.
Somebody would good account, just for fun or something like that, and then it would distribute the penalties, if there were any, right? And then the thing is, you have more supply on the market all of a sudden, and that was not the intent of the OA from the beginning. So that's why I think.
Do you know? You don't know what the intent is. No communication. We have no idea.
True.
Speaks through the blockchain. I've heard though.
But
that's after the fact, lagging indicator, man.
Okay, let me just try to imagine the intent or try to estimate it by looking at speculated by the other stakes, which are 15 years, which trying to get all the supply away for 15 years. So I think those 7 days stakes should also not increase the supply. Yeah, but we will have to see what the blockchain tells us.
What do you mean they won't increase the supply? What do you mean by that?
I think
you don't want them to, or they won't.
No, we don't. I mean, we don't know. First of all, I'm speculating just that I don't think that that HEX that was locked for 7 days should enter the market again. I mean, it will enter the market again in 7 days, but I think it will be locked up. Yeah, that's my speculation. And I don't think that the stakes would just be left there so that somebody can good account and then increase the user circulating supply. Yeah, because those penalties would go to
the good accounting won't increase the user supply because it's still be locked.
But it will increase the payouts for the stakes that are coming out, right?
Yeah, well, remember, if these stakes are not ended, if they're not ended, good accounting just parks them. Nothing happens when they just sit there. They're not on the market. They're still in the contract. They haven't been paid out to the wallet.
Well, okay, but the payout would rise for everybody on that day when the good accounting happens, and then there's penalties, right?
Sure.
And because of that, the user stakers, not the OA stakers, would get for that day bigger payouts, so they would get a bigger yield, so that would be additional supply on the market. That's what I mean.
Yeah, that could happen. I think more, meaning that yes, the payouts will go back up, but it just goes up to what it was. Well, not as high as what it was, but it would go up to where it was. If there were penalties, yes, the penalties would come out and be minted. I entertain this other idea of these 7-day stakes, right? And that the yield is actually minted, the rewards are minted, and then is restaked for another 7 days, and they're minted, and then they're restaked. Because in that way, the OA can begin to build up the system and the payouts, because it would be ever increasing the amount of minted hex much more quickly than before. And then that would, receive the, they get multiplied by the daily constant and create even more payout, which would raise the payout per t-shirt.
That makes the most sense to me too. Like, if I have to speculate on something, I think that's going to happen.
Quick question here too. So these moves, again, the change in monetary policy, if the price doesn't go up, is it a failure of the hex Fed? I mean, like, the price is this a move? I guess, ask another way, is this a move to make the price go up?
Oh, dude.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if the price doesn't go up, then yeah, it's a failure. But I don't think it's even within the control. It's certainly not within the control of maybe only a few people. Maybe OA is the only one that can control it, preventing it from going up. But it's likely we're going to see multi-dollar hex, probably $5 hex, maybe $10 hex off of these moves. So again, I'm like super bullish about this whole thing. When I take the position we come on about being negative about the approach,
pump it up, gotta pump it up.
It's really hard. It's really hard to be taking all this time, over the last 5 years, talking to people about how good hex is and its methodology and the truth engine and all that, and then basically say, yeah, well, now let's G-Gen for a year. It's kind of a schism mentally, right? And it's going to be hard for a lot of people to handle, right? And I've already, the reason I can tell you the things, because I didn't think of all this stuff, the reason I can tell you these points is people have already come to me with these points, saying, hey, listen, I just got screwed. What is this? The OA, I thought the OA wasn't going to do anything, blah, 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 blah. Right. I mean, so these are real feelings that people in the chat here are probably even feeling it, and they're not going to say anything because they don't want to get shouted down in this environment. But in the back channels, this is what's happening. Right.
Okay. They might think, oh, it would be great. I mean, I would love to get a 40%, API and it goes to, $5. I mean, that's incredible. But currently, looking at all the charts and also the ones that I showed you, it is not realistic. It's a heavy toll on the whole system. So that's just fairy tale like thinking, that it could happen, because, Chrispy, you saw it, like last year was the worst year for staking. I mean, this the staking sentiment.
Oh, you mean in sentiment? Oh, yeah, dude, man, it's bullish as hell because listen, I play Monopoly, right? So I'm like, how do I have as many properties and houses at the end, aka hex? And the opportunity that's been provided to me to have as much hex as I want is like incredible.
No wonder you're good at crypto, magic internet money, Monopoly money.
Yeah, there you go. Here goes.
Got a lot of questions and comments we can speak to in the chat. I want to get through just a few of them. Chat, appreciate you. I hope. Are you not entertained? Best free content you may get today. Who knows? There may be a better stream going on. I don't know, but right now I like this one.
Hexertained.
The hexertained. Can I ascertain the amount of hexertained we're going to get if hex goes to $50? That'd be a lot, probably. The 5-minute chart. Bloody Tuesday. That thin liquidity. Did hex liquidity go down? Is that good? What?
Yeah,
what's interesting there?
it went down. Of course, it's good. How else will the price go up? It goes up a hell of a lot harder when there's less liquidity and there's
So
more
less
buying.
inflation, less liquidity. Those are adding up the bull case.
Yeah, and we should say the volatility will go in both directions, right?
Yes, it
So
can
people-
go down very quickly as well.
The traders are
Yeah,
going to get rewarded.
It's a huge opportunity to degen the hell out of the ratio trading. I mean, it really is.
Ooh.
And why now? You asked this, Max, before, and I think it's just like a perfect timing from a 4-year cycle perspective. We had a good run up from September on. We made a golden cross on EHEX, right? On the MACD, monthly MACD, like trading indicators are really good for HEX on Ethereum. BankX is almost out, doesn't have much. I mean, even if he sells, I mean, we saw him selling and just immediately was eight up by the market. So it's just all of these kind of positive things. In the US, like for you guys, I mean, that's it turns to be crypto positive, yeah, which then hopefully comes to Europe as well. And that will just prepares everything into this state of, hey, we can now push really hard, and maybe we need a push because now we could like drop back, make a death cross on the EHEX chart, and then all that yield coming out could just hammer it more down. So we need an extra push currently, and who knows how the yield will look like in the future, because as Chrispy said, the payouts can be built up slowly again with those 7-day rolling stakes. It might not happen. It might happen. We will see. And another thing is, once you have the green candles, people will stake more. And then let's say at the end of the bull market, because I have seen this narrative so often now on the internet, on all sorts of streams, that, ooh, I am staking only for half a year or a year because I want to catch the end of the bull market and sell. But what if yield is increasing at the end of the bull market and you are between that decision and you have the green candles and you're in euphoria? You're like, do you get now really good yield and stake it long? Or do you, get out of the system and sell? But maybe you sell too early, So maybe if you're a holder and you get a higher yield, all of a sudden the decision for you to sell will be harder. And maybe it's locking up even more HEX at the top, which then hopefully protects the price in the next bear market. And then in the next bear market at the bottom would be great if you reduce yield again.
And if you're making the case for the monetary changes to happen based on the cycle, like you think it'll change like at the top of the next one, you think you'll go back up?
We saw now for the second time a major change. We thought, hey, the first time it was just setting up the system, the yield at 40%, and that's it. And that's how it's going to be. Now we saw, no, it can change. So all of a sudden we have to expect change. Meaning that currently we have this yield, but it doesn't mean that it stays this low. It can mean it go high up again. Because it's just changed. So we can expect a change in the future. So if you expect a change in the future, which might be higher or lower yield, hey, the important thing is the decentralized yield that you get. And obviously the how much share you own within the system. And HEX makes you able to really precisely tell where you are in the system. And you can increase your share in the system by being longer than anybody else. And you can do that by just having a higher stake than the average. You want to maintain the ownership within the system, You just take the average of what the average is. Kind of, these are very simple rules to follow. And that's what I mean. In the end, I don't, and then why do we need inflation? Yeah. That would be an interesting aspect, because this is not a question, right? Do we want to eradicate inflation completely? Why is it not just a fixed supply? Why didn't we just stay all at Bitcoin, with a fixed supply? And this is, I think, important, because if you look at any monetary system, there is a certain amount of interest rate. And what that does, it is prices things. When they evaluate companies, in fiat currency and dollars, what they do is they look at the cash flows that the company is generating, and they compare it to the safe alternative of what they can get, at the treasuries. And then they compare it, and that makes the valuation mathematically for companies. This model is called net present value, or discounted cash flow model. You can look it up on the internet. So to evaluate things, you need an interest rate. Basically, in HEX, this is the yield component. And so if you want to have a reserve currency to value things in your currency, you actually need to have an interest rate. And the other thing why you need also the supply increasing within a currency is that usually people, when they use the currency and buy coffee and buy all sorts of goods and services, it's better for them if prices don't decrease all the time. I mean, it's obviously good, but people cannot really handle that. So it's better to have a certain amount of more inflation of the currency, while the technology that is improving makes goods and services cheaper, but it should equal out so that goods and services, the prices of these things in a bucket, stays kind of like the same. If you would have a fixed currency like gold, then like the goods and services prices would just go down over time. But to stabilize it at a certain price, you need supply to increase to counter the technology that is improving things and making things cost less. But now I went pretty much into some
economics. I like it.
Economics.
Good.
But this was just to explain why I think the decentralized yield and a decentralized interest rate is just very important.
A question from Carl here. High inflation was a good defense against centralized exchanges that sell coins they don't have. Guess that probably isn't a problem right now, though. Yeah. What was that? I guess I hadn't thought about that. Was that something?
High inflation was a good defense. Not sure about this.
It's all right. Another question here. HEX payout will increase in time due to the share rate getting more expensive. RH is incentivizing the long stakers right now.
Yeah, that's a super strong point. Well, there's another thing that's going to happen with that. Yes, the HEX payout is going to go up because, of course, it does go up. But we also have this other gap that's occurred, right? So people are going to be getting less inflation, right? You guys with me so far? We know this right now. So let's assume we have a rolling 7 days. People are going to be getting less inflation. but the T-share rate will be still going up at a higher path, angle than what's happened with their payouts. So you're going to end up with a gap like this, right? And with that gap, what's going to happen is more and more people are going to find when their stakes end, they are unable to restake and be able to get the same number of T-shares. They already can't do that by definition, except for big payday stakes sometimes. But now it'll be even harder. They'll have to go out even longer to stay in, or they'll have to acquire even more hex to stay in the same number of T-shares. So all of that kind of comes together with, yes, this could be a very long-term move, even as it stands. Through the way we're talking about, if they were rolling 7-day stakes, you're going to see the payouts ratchet up.
Well. Shell Fox, T-shares are more valuable than yield. How does this affect T-share preservation and versus the thinking about staking versus the daily payout? What's happened recently with the context?
Well, it's everything we've been talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, T-share preservation, you can preserve them in the same way like you did before. So it doesn't affect.
Except you're going to have to put much more value in. But the reason why, even with the yield being down, it's more valuable than yield itself is because the T-shares will keep paying you for as long as you have them. And if a T-share is paying me $100 hex a day, am I okay with that? Yeah, I think so.
And the other aspect is, let's say, if you want to stake, you might look at the yield. You put in $10 and it brings you like $4 in a year. You're like, oh, maybe that's not so interesting. But the price just moves up 10x all of a sudden. You have $100 and it brings you 40. Yeah, and it brings you 40, per year. And yeah, we can play the numbers game and just 10x it again, and all of a sudden it brings you 400. Oh, it brings you 4,000. Oh, it brings you 40,000. So the most important thing is for the price to be able to revisit the higher highs, to tend upwards, to make the same moves like Bitcoin, because it's predictable. Yeah, Bitcoin makes the four cycle thingy, and we all already believe that Bitcoin will go up all the time. So because we have that history, so we need to recreate that in Hex. Hex needs to do a second cycle. It shouldn't die off.
Second cycle moon.
Because then when you do the second cycle, who will question ever staking at that point? Because you will know, if I just stake for 4 years, I will get that yield, and it won't be nothing. There will be always yield. It cannot be zero. Most probably it will be higher than what the banks can give me. Yeah, bank interest rates will go to zero, I think, very soon.
Wow. Beyond all, Chrispy, what do you see happen with the 7-day stakes? I guess they will be restaked again after 7 days, as they will accomplish the purpose of pushing the T-share up in line yield.
What I would like to see happen is for them to be end staked and restaked in total going forward. I think that would be super, super interesting and bullish. So yeah, let's see what happens. Don't know. The OA hasn't ended a stake, but maybe they will. Maybe they will this time. Don't know. But I'd like to see that happen every 7 days, and for that to move the system, and how that would increase both the payout and the T-share rate over time is through the payouts. All right, because if you think about it right now, we've never had this much hex, except for maybe one moment in time. We haven't had this much hex staked for so little time, so many T-shares. Literally taking the yield for a 7-day period like that, which will be in the millions and millions of hex, and minting it. And now that, because it's been minted, this new hex has been freshly minted, it inflates 369. So for those who are looking for lower inflation rates, it might, screw with their mind a little bit if all of a sudden, every week we're adding more and more and more and more and more hex, but again, it's going to the OA, right? But the rewards are not. The rewards get spread out to all the original stakers or the stakers who are in. So that could be one thing that would happen. And of course, the more rewards all the stakes get, the higher the T-share rate will go.
God, there's chat. I'm sorry. There's so many questions and comments you are popping off, but I got to scroll. Because we got to wrap up here in a second. One other thing before we call it a power hour. Are you not entertained? This one. What do you think? Will we see this tweet from Richard at some point? Is it just that easy? It's just believing, holding, not capitulating, timing. What is it that makes success in this ecosystem?
Well, I have my mantra, which is staking ladder all the way out to Quattro Cinco, keep it up to date. That is the proper use case for Hex. All as challenged as it is right now. That's the proper use case.
Definitely for me, it's the same thing. I mean, I can go like further back, like, what did we invent here, right? And Bitcoin, had like transfers in a decentralized way. Ethereum made everything programmable, and it's a settlement layer. And Hex brings the decentralized yield, and it has the best chance to do it. There's no other coin that can do it. So that's where most of the people will go to get decentralized yield, because it's the first one. And that's why it has to. And how do you use it the best? I think Chrispy said staking ladder. I love to have staking ladders too. Like, just it's like a great thing. You every year or every month, however you do it, you get something out and you can decide what to do with it, right? And maybe based on yield, you decide certain things. Maybe if the yield is low, you're like, oh, this is scarce. I'm not selling any of my earned yield. Or maybe you're like, I use the yield to kind of, finance some extra things in my life. Yeah.
There'll be some, I'm looking forward to hex flexing. I mean, I'm looking forward to everyone doing whatever they want with their money, and the community winning, and we must win. We must win.
Absolutely. What other ideas, like bigger than Hex, like that hasn't established itself?
Just one, hex.com.
Just one.
Gentlemen, fire stream. I knew it was going to happen. Third time. Hex Power Hour. Everyone. Chrispy, what are you going to take us out on? We'll start with you.
Thanks for the invite and coming over here. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Hey, I you guys can find me at hexfire.io. And then in terms of Hex, take a look at it, do your research, look into it a little bit further. But I think at this point, there's a lot of moving pieces.
Benzier.
Yeah. So this year starts out with a lot of shifts within the ecosystem, and I think for the better. I think it makes us really pump. If you look at the landscape, what is out there in crypto outside of Pulse Chain, outside of Hex, not really that interesting. I'm not really interested in memes. I'm interested in like usability and in a decentralized way. And hex.com is just main to go thing, you know, like a decentralized yield is the main thing that we need. So I'm behind that idea and I will defend it till the end. And we have a really good to actually do it. And we need an extra push. And I think this gives us the little push. So
push, a shove, a rocket ship, a rocket fuel, and up and to the right, past the moon, through Mars, out of the universe, green candles. Where are you at? Where are you at? Let's do this. We can do it. Yeah, the other way, but yes. Yes. To the right.
$10 hex.
Whatever you're thinking, invert it. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. That's all we got for you today. Sci-Vibe and 5555. We are out.